God, is number 2 different.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Caleb Downs, the safety for Ohio State, is like he could play in the NFL tomorrow.
Right.
I truly believe, and I don't say that lightly. I don't. I'm not one of those like, oh, he out of high school. Like, I don't believe in that sort of thing. I do believe in the tape though, and I believe in the like his instincts, his aggressiveness versus support. Like some guys are just different. You know what I mean? Like some guys. All right, let's take 44 out of the game. And when he was matched up against Warren, the tight end, who had 17 catches against USC, Warren wasn't a factor, bud. Like he wasn't. Right. And just as impressive to me is like how quickly he was just firing the lane versus the run, and how effective he is in support, how good his angles are when he gets there, how effective he is as a tackler and kind of filling in the gaps. So that was the first thing that jumped out, because we are so focused, hyper-focused on the prospects. Tyleik Williams, defensive tackle, along with Ty Hamilton. Igbinosun at cornerback, number 1. Then opposite side 10, Denzel Burke. The 2 defensive ends, TJ and Jack Sawyer. Like, so sometimes when you know that number 2 is not a prospect, you just kind of like look past him. But sometimes guys are just impossible to look past. So my takeaway is, and it's Malachi Starks, great player at Georgia. He's going to probably be the first safety off the board. Some other good safeties in this class, but 2026 is when like the guy at safety comes out. So that was my first takeaway. I want to know what jumped out to you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think he's the best player every time he steps on the field. I don't know. I don't know who. I just don't know who's going to be better when he's on the field. And really quickly, just also the versatility. I mean, he's not just good at one thing or great at one thing. He can do literally everything. You want to play him in the box, you want to spot the quarterback, you want to play him deep, or match him up against the tight end, whatever you want to do. And that makes him that much more of a nightmare for offense coordinators. But to get into the prospects a little bit, a lot of it was, we've already talked about this a lot. And the standard is the standard at Ohio State, right? Mm-hmm. So let's keep this in perspective, because I think some people might watch this and be like, yeah, Mensch, Ohio State's still pretty good this year. And look at the numbers and the stats. I get it. But the standard is the standard. And this is not the same kind of talent that we've seen at Ohio State in the past, in my opinion. And really? Still, I say that, and the depth is good. I think 9 players in that defense could get drafted. Will they all get drafted? I don't know. I think 9 could get drafted. Who's your lock for a first-round pick other than Downs, who's not coming out this year? You have a lock as a first-round pick right now?
I don't have a lock. I mean, let's just do this. We'll jump ahead and then work our way back. I don't have a lock, and we can throw up a graphic and talk about this. It's too early in the process. We're not going to give out grades. You and I compared some notes. I think we're very similar. Like, you have your rankings, I have my rankings right now. We'll have long conversations about why that is. We'll have long conversations about our disagreements. But at the end of the day, I want your opinion. I have my opinion. And then when we're working together, we're forming, we're taking those opinions and we're stacking our board. So here's what I think we can agree on ballpark wise. And at this point in the year, for me, it's not about, I always talk about landing planes. Okay. That's, and I hear like different people say, like, I want to get them in the neighborhood. I want to get them in the zip code, then the neighborhood, then like the exact street, however you want to view it. I view it as air traffic control when we're in early November. Right. It's 6 a.m. You got planes. If you ever look on like the Flight Track app, you got thousands of planes flying from all over the country. Right. And it's like, how the hell are they going to land all these planes? Right. And so we're kind of in that process. Like, the flights took off at 6 a.m. It's now like 8 a.m. They're kind of starting to head towards their destination. I want to start getting them headed all in the right spot and figure out, okay, which ones are going to land first, which is the group that's going to be the second group to land, and then so on and so forth. So for me, not giving grades, but if we tier them a little bit, what are the planes that are going to land first? The planes that are going to land first, to me, are Tyleik Williams, defensive tackle, and Davison Igbinosun, the cornerback.
Agreed.
Those would be the top 2. Then I think a secondary tier, if you will, would be JT, the defensive end, I've got his pronunciation here. I'm not going to butcher it now so everyone can run with it, but I will get it right. I always do. I usually like Kuiper gets the pronunciations in August. I get them by like November, December. But JT, the edge, 44 and 33, Jack Sawyer. Those to me are like the second tier. Okay. Mm-hmm. And when I say second tier, we're talking day 2. Tier 3 for me would be Denzel Burke, the other corner, number 1. Ty Hamilton, defensive tackle. Lathan Ransom, safety. And then tier 3, tier 4 is kind of Cody Simon, the linebacker, who I think is significantly better. I don't want to say like a huge difference.
Yeah.
But I think he's a really good player. I don't think he's special, elite. I think he's a damn good football player. I think he's going to play a while in the league, like covering kicks, backup linebacker, maybe works his way into a starting role. And then Sonny Styles is like more of a fringe guy to me, the other linebacker. So for me, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 9 guys that could get drafted. I'm not convinced that Styles will, but 9 guys that have a chance to get drafted.
Right. I'm right there with you. The groupings are the same. So we're off to a good start, I guess. I will say really quickly, because I don't think we're going to spend a lot of time on him, is Styles is intriguing to me as that late round prior to free agent guy, because he's a former safety. He's 6'4". He's 235. So you think former safety, you're not thinking great size potential. I think he's a guy that maybe hangs around, makes a practice squad, and works himself onto an active roster. There's some things that he does on film that I really like. I think he's still adjusting to the position, playing closer to the line of scrimmage more often now. But I think he's an interesting guy to keep an eye on if your team drafts late or signs as a free agent. But where do you want to go from here? You want to talk about it?
No, I want to go like, if there are 2 or 3 guys, in your opinion, from what you saw, that are either playing above what we expected, starting to play like we expected, or just not, they are who they are. So give me a couple guys that stood out and what stood out about them.
I loved the defensive tackle Tyleik Williams coming into the year, and I gave him. I know we're not talking grades. I thought he had a potential to be a first-round pick. Maybe he still does. Now, when I look at it, just to put it in a little perspective, you look at the tackles that went at the top of the second round last year, and please don't make me pronounce the Clemson defensive tackle. Can you do that one? The Clemson defensive tackle, Rook Ororo?
Yeah, Ororo.
Yeah, and then you got Johnny Newton, Tavondre Sweat, Braden Fisk. I thought those guys were dudes last year. I thought they all had chances going, and they end up going second round. So I get a little concerned about maybe talking about him as a first round pick, but he is a guy that's, I think you look at it, the first thing is power, right? He's a run stuffer and that's great, but can he get to the quarterback? And he's not overly explosive or, great change of direction, but he is good with his hands and he can move that. He may never be a high, sack producer or a high sack volume, but he can affect the quarterback.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I see him miss some tackles. I get there, disrupt, not finish.
Tight.
Fall off tackles, little tight change in direction. So, and to be honest, those names you just said, like I had Fisk rated higher than some of the guys that went ahead of him. I was surprised. But like Fisk is a better baller last year than what I'm seeing from Tyleik. But he's in that neighborhood. Like I think, but it's also important for some context. And again, it's early and some guys could have unbelievable workouts and all this, but like, if you normally have like 17 to 22 true first round grades in a draft, I don't know that we have 15 this year where you're like slam dunk
psyched about it. Right.
And it is what it is. But I also think it's an incredibly deep class. And especially like at certain positions, like running back, we've talked about, like there's a lot of talent, but I don't. So a second round grade last year may have been a first round grade this year. And vice versa. So with all that said, Williams could go in the first round, but his grade may be more equivalent to a second round grade. What about Igbinosun? Because, Denzel Burke for a long time has been the guy that everyone is expected to elevate and be the next great, Ohio State corner. That Oregon tape was tough, man. Like
I
double move, eyes in the backfield,
which I didn't see last year. I thought my notes from last year was an instinctive guy. Thought he was really good at scheme versatility. He was an off coverage. He struggled in that game.
Yeah.
I was like, please just let him press. Just put him up, because the more space he was in, the less effective he was in that game. He had a bad day.
I wonder as the season progresses with Igbinosun and Burke, they played a lot of zone against Penn State.
Yeah.
They played a lot of off. They played more press against Penn State than they did against Oregon, which surprised me because and I know we talked last night and
I want to get into that. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. But I to me, like these corners are more physical press, get in your face.
Right.
You know?
That's what I love about Igbinosun.
Yeah. Go ahead.
He's gonna make your life a nightmare getting off the line. And he is so competitive and so tough. And he's a little lean right now. I think he get a little bit bigger and stronger. But he is a mauler at the line of scrimmage. He just makes it really tough. Now you live and die with that a little bit. He will get flagged. He does get overly aggressive and overly physical. That's one of the concerns I have. I want to see him run. But when you look at the compete level, the compete level though, and not making it tough for guys to get off the line. I think he's only has one pick, but I mean, we've talked about the pick. I mean, it was unbelievable. I think he's going to be all right in terms of ball skills. So the thing that kept jumping out to me was the toughness. He will fight off blocks, get involved in the run. I mean, he is a tough, competitive player with good cover skills. I don't know if he's that elite shutdown guy. And again, the physicality, you live with it, but it's also a little bit of a concern at times. Yeah.
So kind of to sum it up, here's what I saw. Here's what I've seen so far. And I do want to I really want to preface this by saying, while it's not one of the elite groups that we've seen in the last decade, and I'll get into that in a second, it's a damn good college football defense.
Right.
Find me many, if any, other defenses this year that have 9 guys that could get drafted and a safety like Caleb Downs, who's not eligible, who's going to be a first round pick,
right,
and probably going to be a top 15 pick. So let's keep perspective here. We don't need the lunatic fringe from Ohio State, getting after us. That's not what we're here for. I'm here to put perspective on it. And so it's a damn good defense. And it's a defense that's improving. I think that's the most important thing. We talked to Joel Klatt last week, and he was saying, talking to coaches, there's disappointment in individual performances, and they're having to blitz more and take more chances because they're not getting some of the play out of the guys that they expected to get. Well, I started to see against Penn State, they're starting to get play out of those certain guys that they were disappointed in earlier in the year. So it's progressing the right way. I also think as a team, not just defensively, Ohio State, you got to understand the pressure cooker that this organization, if you will, that this program is in.
It's different, man.
And so they had one huge game early in the year, and they lose it on the road in a brutal finish of that game, right? And then it's all this lead up to Penn State, and you're going to Happy Valley. And what if this is the year where we lose again to a top 5 opponent, but it's Penn State, and we should always beat Penn State. We've beaten them 14 or less, 16 or whatever the numbers are. So I think I'm excited to see Ohio State from this point on. Are they free? Do they start to play loose? Is that monkey off their back, to use an old cliche? You know what I mean? Because when you live in Columbus and you've got everyone's talking about one thing, Ohio State football. And for a long time after Oregon, it was everyone's talking about one thing. They're not achieving at the level we expect. The best roster money can buy. So I think I'm interested to see the psychology. If all of a sudden Ohio State's all right, we're here. That's more what we expected to put on tape. We got past that huge hurdle. Now let's just go play ball. And you look at the rest of the schedule, Purdue, I want to see him come out and just absolutely stomp Purdue. At Northwestern, an Indiana program, undefeated, playing great ball. But let's face it, the gap in talent between those two, that to me would be a statement game. All right, Indiana,
I'm excited for that game. Yeah.
Yeah, this is cute, but we're Ohio State. And we're free now to go play our level ball.
Right.
And then Michigan, if they can exercise that demon and get past that Michigan game, a loss, by the way, to Michigan this year. I don't want to see the fallout.
No.
But from what we're seeing on tape, this Ohio State team is getting better. So I'm excited to see what happens down the stretch. But now let's go back. I think, and maybe it's just old news because everyone was talking about how great this defense was. And I think it stems from early in the year where they were historically, this is one of the great all-time defenses. They're damn good. but they're not at the level of some of the defenses that we've seen. Like go back to 2015, the national championship Alabama won, right? That 2016 NFL draft, the April right after, they had 4 second rounders, including Reggie Ragland, Ashawn Robinson, Jerron Reed. Like that was a damn good defense. And I think most important is they also had a lot of young contributors on that defense. The 2017 draft was when a lot of those guys finally came out, who were sophomores or juniors during the 2015 season. 3 first rounders, 7 total draft picks. So you had 11 guys that went on to get drafted the next 2 drafts from that defense, an entire starting defense, and 7 of them were in the first 2 rounds. So like that's different than what we're talking about with a couple second rounders, maybe like 3rd and 4th rounders. 2017 Alabama defense, a couple of years later, after all those guys got drafted. That's when I talk about reloading as the historically great ones, the last decade at least. The 2017 Alabama national championship team had in the 2018 draft 3 first rounders: Minkah Fitzpatrick, Deron Payne, Rashaan Evans, and 8 total starters were drafted from that defense. Okay. Like that group was stacked. 2021 Georgia, arguably the best defense we've ever seen. That was, when you want to talk elite, this is what you're up against. They had 9 defensive players drafted. Almost the entire defense was drafted. And this is the difference. Ohio State may have 9, but it's going to be backloaded.
Right.
Georgia was front loaded. 5 first rounders. Ready for this? Trayvon. I want you to listen. Trayvon Walker, Jordan Davis, Quay Walker, Devontae Wyatt, and Lewis Seen. Okay.
Yep.
And so 5 of those 9 were first rounders. And then, by the way, Jalen Carter was a backup. Yeah. He was rotating.
Right. He couldn't come out yet. Right.
Couldn't come out yet. So just that's the perspective. So I think I'm still like getting over the frustration of like watching Game Day and certain shows and Big Noon Kick. And they're talking about this has a chance to be one of the great all-time defense. Like they're damn good, but it's not a historically great defense. And so it's got to be a little bit more balanced. And Ohio State has got to, I think they found their identity offensively. Okay.
Right.
I think it's running the football, letting Chip cook as an offensive play caller in the run game, allowing Will Howard opportunities like he had with Brandon Tate, and he missed that throw and threw him out of bounds down the right rail. But hopefully next time that opportunity presents itself, he puts that ball on him. Now you've got a little bit more of a comfortable lead. Now it's a 2-touchdown win. But running the football, utilizing Will Howard's mobility, those are the things that, to me, are going to be the signatures moving forward with Ohio State. And that's the kind of balance. When you have an offense that complements the defense, now you've got a team.
Right.
And I think that they were trying to figure things out early in the season. And I think now they know the identity. We talked about in that Nebraska game. They were running the ball into a wall.
Right.
But why did they do that? Because Chip was like, if we can't do it against Nebraska, we don't have a season anyway. So we're going to figure.
If you're a fan of that team, I would say the one, the one kind of negative or downer there is you look at those wide receivers and you're like, man, I just want to air it out. I just want to, let's get those guys the ball as much as possible. But if you're trying to win a national championship and you want to be the best team you are, and this is your identity, those guys are going to make plays. They may not put up the numbers. They may not put up those big numbers that you might want to see, but watch out. They're critical points in that game. Chip's going to find a way.
Chip's going to find a way
to those playmakers and watch
Chip's
out.
Chip's also he's an efficient, smart card player at the poker table, right?
Yep.
He's not going to go in there and just start slinging cards to sling cards.
Right.
You just got down to your 3rd offensive tackle, left tackle the week before, and now you're plugging your left guard in at left tackle. First game he started that position. Taking your center from a year ago, who hasn't started this year, has never played guard, plugging him in a guard. So we're not going to come out and start, going and drop back and slinging the ball 30 times in this game. That's not what he's going to do. You've got to play to your strengths. So now that he's a little bit more confident in Donovan Jackson and believes that, believes in him a little bit more, I think we'll see a little bit more balance offensively, but that was absolutely protecting, feeling things out throughout the game and going with what we know we got.
Right. And now he's, you talk about that Purdue game. He can go, no offense to Purdue, but he can kind of like just go back in the lab, and he's going to take notes about, he'll try a few different things, I think, in that game and say, this works. Well, if this works now, I feel good about it later on. And if this isn't working against Purdue, we probably aren't going to roll this out against Oregon. I mean, he's got some matchups coming up where that team can get a little more confidence, and Chip can have a little more confidence in what he wants to do.